Yo, wish you were here. We're two fourth-year med students at this point, just kind of almost finishing up our medical school journey. We thought we'd just kind of yap about, what are kind of the best things about med school.
Yep, what to expect when you get to med school, some tips we got for you, stuff like that.
The most important things that you need to know if you're considering med school right now.
Or if you applied and you got in, or if you didn't get in, you're reapplying, as in my case. In my case was.
Just kind of a message from the other side, So let's get into it. So what can you expect, on your journey right now? You're either an undergrad or you just got accepted to med school.
Or you're in high school. Who knows where they're at.
Or you're like an infant.
Maybe they're non-traditional.
Yeah. Maybe you're 45 years old considering med school.
Yeah, we do have a 50-year-old in our class.
50 plus now. It's been a while.
50 plus, yeah. She started med school at 50.
Yeah, there's a wide range of things. It's very possible for anybody to get in. It's just about your passion, your desire. If this fits your passions, then, you can do it. So anyway, so you've probably been through all the ringer of things and kind of know what to expect. Maybe you don't. So we'll kind of just give you a little example about what your life is like, So you go to undergrad, 4 years, typically taking a lot of science classes. You got to do the MCAT is what some big barrier that you got to do. Extracurricular activities, trying to build up your resume, trying to get a lot of shadowing or some kind of clinic hours. You got to get some of those in there to show that you actually know what a doctor is like and things like that. And then you go into med school. So you want to talk about your experience when you first got to med school. What did you expect it was, and how was it that different from the reality?
Yeah. So my entrance into med school, so I actually got rejected my first year of applying to medical school, which is surprising. Yeah, it sucked.
Surprising.
It was surprising because I've never been rejected my entire life.
I find that hard to believe. Oh, a smile too.
Yeah, I've never been rejected my entire life. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't happen to me. No, but seriously, I had a high GPA, man. I had that 4.0. I had a decent MCAT. My MCAT was 505. It was like, at the time, it was like a 50, or not a 50, like a 70th percentile or so. So I thought that was decent enough. Then I had a lot of research under my belt. Didn't have any publications, but like research experience. We actually didn't get any publications out, which is kind of nuts. Had a lot of tutoring. Had a lot of like shadowing, physicians, stuff like that.
So basically you thought you were stacked.
Yeah, I thought I was stacked.
Okay.
And then I applied to medical schools. I only applied to I didn't apply to a whole bunch of schools, to be honest. I selectively applied, which was probably a mistake, and got absolutely rejected. So then I took a year off, kind of rethought, what my life was all about. It was good to take a step back because I was grinding so hard in undergrad, to realize that, wow, this is what relaxing feels like. Because I was just pushing so hard. I was a gunner in undergrad. So were you probably, right?
Yeah, I have a similar experience, kind of stacking my resume with things. I did pretty well in undergrad, high GPA and all that.
I will say, when I reapplied to med school, I told myself I would take my lifestyle seriously. I would make time for gym, sleep, hobbies, stuff like that. So I think if I would have got straight into med school, my entire experience would have been different. I wouldn't have met you, first and foremost.
I don't know if that would be a negative or a positive, but
probably a negative. And yeah, how was your undergrad experience like getting into med school?
Yeah, it was a grind. It was a lot of stuff. And I will say, I think if I'm comparing med school first year versus undergrad, kind of going through it, I think you're doing just a lot more stuff. In undergrad, you have your hands in a bunch of different baskets, trying to do stuff all the time, trying to fill volunteer work, extracurriculars, school work, MCAT study, all that stuff. Whereas med school, it's just a lot of one thing. It's like you're doing this a lot.
I like that better than just being like, oh, I got to take this philosophy class, or I got to take this,
And not to say that, we do a ton of extracurricular stuff in med school, but it's more of finding your passion rather than I have to do this volunteer work. I have to do this.
Yeah, it feels good to dive a little deep, more narrow.
Yeah. So it is a lot. It's more simple. Your path, you know what you need to do. It's so much. Like they say, drinking out of a fire hose, stuff like that, which is true. Definitely that first month, you're getting kind of hosed. So
yeah.
But that's just to say, it gets better after that. So that first month.
Let's talk about our first month of med school. So you can expect to, you're just getting to med school. You're like, crap, this big exam's coming up. You realize that these exams are pretty dang huge. You don't want to fail your first exam. So personally, we went very hard in our first exam. Got top 10, out of 144 students, top 10 percentile. And yeah, I mean, we realized that that wasn't sustainable though, because we were studying like 24/7. I personally wasn't going to the gym as
I
as
wasn't.
regularly, and then I was sleeping a lot less. Which, I mean, I just realized that, like I said, I promised myself going into med school, like I said, I was gonna take my lifestyle more serious. So I took a step back and started scoring just like average to maybe slightly above average on the rest of my exams throughout my first 2 years of med school.
So basically, you're saying your grades were going up, but then your mental health was going down.
Right,
You
and I
tried
had to find
that
the balance.
right there,
Yeah,
that's
and I
really-
found it. I
Yeah.
definitely found it.
That's something that you definitely have to do. Not to say that you can't excel. It's just something that we prioritized our mental health and
And
exercise.
that's kind of the other thing too, though. Like, you think about it, like, yeah, I'm getting average exam scores at my school, but does that really actually matter when you're applying to residency? You know what I mean? Because a lot of this stuff is just pass fail almost. Like, residencies don't look at really your school grades per se.
In terms of grades and stuff, no. It's just as long as you know the material. You know what I mean. You don't have to know every single little thing.
Board
like you did
exams matter a ton more
Yep.
than getting high scores in your. I think our school does it to where, like, if you get top 10 in your class or something like that, top 10th percentile, they'll like throw that on your residency applications for you.
Yeah.
But I mean, I knew I wasn't gonna go super hard like that, so I was cool with just taking an average and just focusing a little bit more on boards and just life.
Like what's important in mid school, right? Like there's lists of things that University of Michigan has done like studies on a bunch of program directors for residency. So that's this after med school you go to residency on what those programs think is important, and there's a list. But it shows kind of the priorities of what they think is like super important. And I believe that board scores are up there, but extracurriculars, letters of rec, those things are way more important than your GPA or pass fail or
I guess a good tip right now is to say don't focus too hard on your actual like school exam scores. I would say at least of course pass. Yes, survive and pass. But make sure your life's in check, and then get your extracurriculars and research in. I think that'd be a pretty good tip there.
You think something that you have to do.
That's a clinical pearl, as you would call it, a school pearl.
Yeah, so that's something that you say you must do in your first year. You think is kind of find the balance.
Yeah, 100%.
I think something that you must do in your first year is make friends. I think that's something that you.
That goes along with the balance, right?
Yeah, you got to find your people, and I think it's easy to do that when you're spending 80 hours a week at
and you're
school
getting traumatized with each other.
Yeah,
it's all about that trauma bonding.
It is unfortunate, but it is true. You will make some great friends. Lifelong friends, because you're going to be living like. I kind of feel like through med school it's 4 years, right? But I feel like I've lived 10, 12 years in med school. Because
but it goes by so fast at the same time.
It goes by fast. All right, what's something that you wish you knew about medical school before? So when you're in the process, before day one of medical school, what is something that you wish you knew?
Yeah, something I wish I knew is probably like med school can be as hard as you want it to be. If you're going for a competitive specialty, you're going to be studying a lot harder and working a lot harder than someone who's just going for like, primary care or something that's a lot easier to get into. So
which is what we want to do.
Yeah, which is essentially what we want to do. We want to get into something. We're not looking at like surgery, orthopedic surgery, plastic surgery, dermatology. All those are super competitive to get into. But if you are looking into that, you're gonna have to work a lot harder than your peers for sure. In terms of just like research, extracurriculars, getting a higher board score. I feel like me and you, we studied quite a bit for like boards. We got quite a few extracurriculars and whatnot. And I feel like we're personally, like, I don't think we'd be competitive for any of those specialties still after doing everything we did. We worked fairly hard during med school, I would say. I'd say we worked an average amount, like what the average student probably works, which is a lot. They say med school is double the amount of work as undergrad is. So if you're an undergrad right now, you know what to expect. Lectures are like 8 to 5-ish. You can, of course, 2 times speed them, watching them from home after they're done. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest part probably that separates it is you're going to spend a lot more time on research. We didn't really do a ton of research.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you want to do...
It also depends a lot on your school, though. If your school's just got a lot of research opportunities and whatnot.
Yeah, I would hop on that early. Like, if you think that you might want to do a more competitive specialty, it's probably best to hop on a research project early, kind of make sure that either you have that checked off, or if you're interested in research, make sure you get your feet wet, and that is something that it's kind of harder to get in 3rd and 4th year when you're doing your clinical rotations, depending on where you're at for your school. Cool. So what would you say is the hardest part about med school? all in general. Now
Man.
you're in your 4th year. You've gotten a whole look at everything. What is the hardest part?
Shoot, I think the hardest part is just getting adjusted to whatever it is you're getting adjusted to. So, for example, when we started our first month of med school, it was just getting adjusted to the fire hose that you got to just take down.
Yeah.
And then you get adjusted to it after about a month, and it's just like all just, you get used to stuff no matter what it is, no matter how hard it is. I feel like you'll just get used to it. So same thing goes with like when your 3rd year starts and you're on your first rotation ever, being out there in a clinic or a hospital. First week is probably like you're on edge just because you're stressed out. You want to look good. You want to look you want to look good in front of your preceptor, look good in front of just everybody. It's kind of unrealistic to just like be perfect coming out the gates, but you want to like look perfect coming out the gates. So you get used to it once again. Kind of stress levels decrease, and then you're just like in a zone. You get into a schedule, and time just flies by in an instant.
Yeah.
I feel like once you get into that schedule.
Yep, that's definitely true. Like we said, it's kind of a weird time dilation kind of thing. That would be mine as well. Like getting adjusted to the first couple weeks, it feels like you want to quit. That's
You're like, how is this sustainable?
Yeah, they're like, how do people do this? How do people do this? Because like at first, I thought like, oh, this is easy, like the first day. But then the 3rd day and the 4th day, it's like, oh, this just keeps coming, man. Just keeps coming. So I would say that, but also I'd say board exam studying, because you just really don't know where you're at. You can take as many practice exams as you want, but you just don't really know. You could be kind of spinning your wheels, and like I'm still at that same percentile that I thought.
Yeah, and you really don't know how much of like what they're teaching you in school. Like, say your school has an exam, of course, and you're not sure how much of that like overlaps with actual board relevant stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So I feel like for our school, like the questions were very simple, straightforward. A lot of them were first order questions, like just asking you a straight up question. They were short in terms of like how many sentences long the question was. Very straightforward, and definitely on our in-class school exams. But then when you get to board studying, trying to get those higher board scores and whatnot, you see like those board questions, and they're daunting. I remember the first practice board exam our school gave us. I got like a 3rd percentile on that, didn't I?
Yeah, like 3 out of 100. Yeah.
Yeah, like I did terrible on that just because I wasn't used to the style of questions. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was doing above average on my school exams, but then the board exam questions came out, and I was just trash at them because they're a different type of question. Like they just ask questions so differently.
Yeah. Moral of the story is, as soon as you can get your hand on some board stuff, just do a little bit. You don't have to do a lot, but
yeah. When would you say for them to start studying for boards? I would.
First exam, I'd say more like 6 months is probably good to just get your feet wet.
Yeah.
At least
Start just slowly getting into it.
Yeah, but that's a lot more specific stuff. We can talk about that in more videos as well. But it's more of the format of the questions rather than the information, because you're cool. Like our school is more clinical based kind of stuff, and so it's kind of hard to adjust the application of things like that. But yeah. All right, what's the best part about med school?
The best part for me is definitely the people you meet along the way. Pretty easy, self-explanatory, considering like we started a YouTube channel in our middle to end of our first year, which was this channel. I actually started it was crazy how this all worked out. So I started a YouTube channel like during orientation week of med school, just because I watched a lot of medical school YouTube people. And I thought that it'd be cool to be like them in terms of just posting your daily life, all the struggles you're going through and stuff like that. Then it kind of got, I wasn't posting consistently, kind of got, I don't know if I want to say the word boring, but it just got too much in terms of, I was just doing a lot of schoolwork, making sure I was hitting the gym. So it just kind of it wasn't something that was at the top of my list, And then I met my boy Jack right here. And then you were really into kind of music making just in general. You always wanted to do some YouTube stuff on the side, and we were all right, we both love doing
we were hunting for some kind of creativity.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Yeah, because it feels very one note in medicine. You're studying all things, which is great, but you only can do one thing for so long. You know what I mean? And we're both pretty creative people, so it just made a lot of sense. So
yeah,
I guess that's our origin story.
Huh.
There's another video.
Yeah, so that's the best part about med school for me is the people that you meet along the way, and you're gonna meet a lot of lifelong friends for sure. Even like when I have preceptors that talk about, their friends and whatnot, a lot of their friends are doctors and physicians and people that they've known since med school, that type of stuff. So,
Yep, these are people you're going to spend pretty much the rest of your life with, so
Yeah.
get used to them. All right, our last thing here, final advice that you would give to people going
you didn't say your best part of med school. What's your favorite part of med school? And you cannot pick the same thing I just talked about.
Come on, man. I'd say the best part about med school is probably, besides the people, is the transition where you get to actually be like, oh man, I'm gonna be a doctor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting a lot more of that as you go through med school. And watch our other video on.
But do you ever really feel like you're a doctor though? You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
but
are you
get
ready
glimpses.
to be a doctor? You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, but you get a lot of glimpses where you're like, wow, I really helped this person. You know, like I actually did something in their lives.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that
The-
probably
When you
fuels
start
everybody to
taking on
start.
more responsibility.
And I think that's why a lot of people want to go into med school, is to truly help people. You know, obviously you can't say that on your med school application
Yeah, 'cause
interviews.
that's
like,
so generic.
Why'd you start? But I mean, they say you can't say that because that's everybody's kind of goal, right? Is to help people. But when you actually truly do that for somebody, like something that maybe your preceptor didn't do, and you actually are helping people, that's like, oh man, you feel fulfilled in life, something that fills your cup for sure. So besides the people, I think, actually getting fulfilled and doing something good for society is definitely a great part about it. So if that's something that excites you, then I think you're on the right path. Keep going there.
Another like side note is a lot of my preceptors or physicians that I shadowed during undergrad. I remember some of them told me that medicine is a lifestyle. My take on that is that medicine is not a lifestyle. For me, it's always just going to be a career. You can enjoy, I think, like I enjoy medicine, at least certain parts of medicine. But it's always just going to be a career. I'm not going to make it my life, and I don't think you should either. I think that's bad advice when they say it's a lifestyle. Just because like that, as soon as they say that, they're kind of saying like you can't do other things in life, and like that medicine's going to be your entire life. And I think that's a horrible thing to like just focus. That goes down with anything too, right? Being too hyper focused on one thing is usually not the greatest. It's always good to have balance, no matter what. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because then anything that goes wrong in your career, you're going to take that as something that's personally done to you.
Dude.
Like anything goes wrong. So.
Yeah, when you see, now that Jack brought that up, say I fail a medical school exam or something like that, which I've gotten close, but it's never happened, thankfully.
Balance.
It's all about balance. Still got good relationships with family and friends. Still was. Maybe I hit like a goal in the gym or something like that. Maybe the gym's going well. Maybe I'm still caught up on sleep, so I'm like mood-wise, I'm still feeling good. So it's like all these other things that'll back you up if something goes wrong in one area of your life, right? So, what's your final tip?
Yeah, if you're considering med school, or your first year of med school, or your undergrad, just know that you are capable of doing this. There's people, like we said in the beginning, there's people from all walks of life, non-traditional people, super young people, people that have failed before, people that have gotten rejected before. You can get in. So I think if you just keep that fire inside you, and you still do have the passion to help people at its core, if you do have the passion to do it, then you are capable of doing it. And it just takes the drive, and you're actually putting pen to paper and actually getting it done. So
Or if you're one of the
don't
15 people that failed out.
cut that out. So never forget that you are capable, you are able, and you're loved, and you got this. All right,
All right, final words.
go get them.
Go get him, Tiger. All right, hope y'all have a great rest of your day.
Yes, sir. Cool.